it's live now, I believe. No? Yes, sir.
Mm-hmm.
So I think it's live now, Shaq.
Yeah, give a moment for the people to come up into the live room. You know what I mean?
Sorry for the technical difficulties. It's the our first try, our first attempt to go live on this momentous occasion.
Live and direct. You know what I mean? We're gonna do it.
So it looks like our guy Trump is up, still up 42-46 to 189.
Mm-hmm. We live?
Yes, we are
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Okay, we go, we go, we go, we go. Okay.
live
Yeah,
from
yeah, I
Denver
see it now.
Stuyvesant. Not quite exactly. All right, so
I'm gonna go ahead. I'm gonna go ahead and get the word out. I'm gonna get the word out. You know what I mean? But yeah, as it stands right now, it's definitely looking like my ball. You know what I mean? The guy from Queens, Queens get the money. It's looking like he's on his way. I don't know if y'all got y'all little y'all bought y'all little stocks, y'all little Trump stocks and a little political markets and stuff like that. But if so, y'all should be looking at a little healthy return right now. You know what I mean?
so you talking about the Trump stock joint?
Yeah, 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 yeah. I mean, because I didn't do it this time because I was unsure of how they was going to kind of be janky with the market. Whether or not they was actually going to try to steal it this go around because I had bought a healthy amount of shares in Trump last go around, and the way that they do these markets is like you buy it, you can purchase by states the stock, even how that person will perform in a particular state, and based upon how you could kind of forecast how the rallies were going, all the rest of that other stuff. Even the BS polls, you kind of had a good idea that he was going to win in certain places that in the end he didn't wind up winning in. And as a result of that, I didn't invest this go around, but I've definitely heard some stories of a lot of folks who, like tonight, they're very happy right now. They are very happy right now how they then came in the green with the likelihood of this guy winning. So it is what it is. You capitalize. It's all about timing, I guess, at certain times with investments. And if you happen to catch this guy that's go around right here, it's not even like he's gonna win the electoral vote, but it's looking like he's gonna win the popular one too. And that's when the Republican wins the popular vote. That's when you really know, like, that the people was behind this guy, because usually the major cities and the states with the most electorals are usually gonna be them. So the majority of the country in this instance rock with the guy. So
Right.
yeah. What? So on a piggyback of the last conversation we had, what you think of how those imams, how you think those imams is feeling tonight?
Well, you know, I know
How
I
they feeling right now?
I don't know, my brother. I think that there's going to be a lot of feelings and emotions. A lot of people disappointed, highly disappointed, as well as a lot of people um, highly satisfied and with the outcome. Assuming that,
Hmm.
okay, assuming that things continue to follow through, as you can see here, there's a 88% probability compared to a 17% probability. You know, I personally because of my experience last election, when it seemed as though Trump had handily defeated um, Joe Biden. I don't
Hmm.
like to count it until the deal is sealed 100%. But
For sure, especially with the mail-in ballots and all the rest of that foolishness that we know is gonna come. You know.
right. But this is for me. I would say I understand. You know, the leaders in the Black Muslim community. Um, those of the ones that have this relationship with the politicians and in the local community, and even all the way in the White House. They had a vested interest. These
Hmm.
relationships takes years and years to build, and so they had a vested interest in um, supporting the Kamala Harris campaign. And
Right.
so, from a strictly pragmatic um, a pragmatic approach to politics, I can 100% understand why they may have made the political calculus to support Kamala Harris. And so, um, you know, I can be sober minded about that whole thing. But then, on the other hand, there's a lot of hysterics. In my opinion, there's a lot of hysterics when you talk to black people in particular, black Muslims as well, unfortunately, about what the potential of a Donald Trump presidency um, meant. And
A lot of folks are shook.
yeah, a lot of folks were um, under the impression, or I don't. I mean, based on what we're seeing, um, you know, a lot of people right now might be scared to death, actually, and I mean quite literally. I think the media has done a fantastic job of creating hysterics, and is very reminiscent of the COVID moment,
Hmm.
where the media was complicit in creating, um, I think I would say, group hysteria. And I feel like the media is also complicit in this moment in doing similar. They're calling the dude Hitler. They're saying the dude's a fascist. They're saying he's coming for revenge, or he's going to do a revenge tour. So um, I think that,
I am your retribution, mother. Yeah,
right.
yeah.
And you know what? Uh, so I can see a lot of people right now, even like I said, the most absurd sentiment. Um, People were suggesting that slavery was on the table, or you know, the emotion,
Project 2025.
Project 2025. So this was a campaign of fear, in my opinion. And
For
so
sure.
now, on one hand, you feel, for me, it was never that. None of that. None of those things actually made any sense to me. And it was always a matter of me about America First paradigm versus the globalist paradigm. And I'm in support of the America First paradigm. So it was always a very clear choice for me. So um, while I can say that I'm satisfied with this outcome, I can also empathize with people probably feeling a great sense of despair and and fear at the moment. So it's sort of a mix. I have a mixed emotion at the moment. Be honest with you.
Honestly, I feel like this is like a loop from 2016. I'm saying, like, instead of Hillary, you have Kamala, and even though the the predictions weren't the same going into it, as far as people expecting Kamala to, I guess, be, she ain't have a 99% chance of victory the way that Hillary did. But at the same time, um, I do know that back during that period of time in 2016, I was very much on the fence. I did not vote in that election. And um, it was one of them vibes where, like, I wasn't unplugged from the matrix. So I ain't see, the good, if you will, that he was bringing to the table. But at the same time, I at the very least was awake enough to hear, like, I knew what was going on with the other lady and her emails, and it wasn't, certain words wasn't fitting right in the vocabulary of things. So I was like, I can't vote for her. And I knew her husband was a weirdo too. So, what I mean? I set out. And that's what appears energy wise that a lot of people are doing this go around. It's like there's a section that's like they ain't awake enough to like really appreciate or understand, like, the fight against the central bank, or, the fight against the human trafficking, or, you know, the wage growth outpacing inflation, the tax cuts, but bringing in more tax revenue. Like, there's a whole bunch of concepts that I guess go over a lot of people's heads right now. But at the same time, at least enough of them is on the vibe like, yo, I'm gonna sit this one out, and at least that was enough. I mentioned that in the post, like, yo, that was enough to get him elected the first time. So hopefully this go around, enough people sitting out, because it just, at the very least, them being aware enough to know something ain't right about that prosecutor, that, that resulted in what we see right here with the dang near 50-point advantage on a lady. Like I said, there's a there's a possibility that with these other states, if you add in, put it like this, if you add in Minnesota, Wisconsin, and Michigan right now, well, okay, Minnesota's going back blue, but if you have Wisconsin, Michigan, and Pennsylvania plus Georgia, just them alone, like, he already won. He won. So there's a possibility we might be able to get a close to a defined outcome tonight. But then at the same time, uh, you know, if you want me to, I can definitely go into a couple of conspiracy theories about.
Oh my God, we know that you can definitely go into a couple.
Yeah, I'm saying,
Yeah,
like,
yeah. I don't think the audience is ready for that. But
there's a possibility some things will go
no,
awry.
no, far, far. I mean, Lord have mercy. So let's try to stick
Yeah, I
with
mean,
you know obvious probabilities
the
as
present, the
opposed to
now.
yeah, yeah, yeah. So you know if nothing else, let's say for instance, God forbid, we wake up tomorrow and somehow or another, this miracle of Kamala winning happens. I know, those people that believe in the narrative. The last post we did, or last post I did, was really exposing the way that narrative was being wielded as a weapon, almost weaponized, in order to make this candidacy, Kamala's candidacy, a reality. And as you know, those things that you had mentioned about um, wages and the migrants and the many things that for you and I um, made her candidacy untenable or undesirable. Those things
Right.
were overlooked again by the storytelling and the narrative. So to a lot of people right now. And you know what the question might be, looking at the maps, you might say maybe there's not so many of those people, but a lot of people that we know, a lot of people from the black community, a lot of the women, um, um, elders, like you said, this group of imams, the people that for one reason or another were motivated and swayed and by that narrative. you know I almost feel some sympathy, and again, I blame the media, but I also
Let me
blame.
ask you. Wait, I gotta ask you this though.
Mhm.
Why do you feel sympathy for them? Because I
Because
don't.
yeah, because um to be quite honest, I personally, my understanding for me was so clear as to what was really, in my opinion, on the ballot, what these two um, candidacies, what they represented, and the liberal narrative that was being painted was so far fetched to me that the story, I couldn't relate to it. But over the past couple weeks, even especially this past week, last week, um, when I'm looking at comments in social media and looking at different platforms and hearing people that have totally bought into these different narratives, like people were, I would say, the level of fear, and people were traumatized. I would say people were being terrorized essentially. Like, and I like I said, I couldn't relate to it, but I'm like listening and reading some of the things. I'm like, wow, these people are unhinged, And so it's like you watching a boxing movie. So if you want to go back to the whole idea of narrative creation, it's like watching a movie where there's a clear villain and there's a clear
Right.
hero. Kamala, I can say her name right. Kamala Harris has been
Kabbalah.
Kamala Harris has been typecast in this role of this hero, this black woman who has come to cement the ascendance of the black woman and the black community in this um, you know movement from where we came from 400 years ago to, like,
Right.
she's the latest step forward to progress, and an embodiment of all that that people have strived for, people have died for. She's been imbued with all of this symbolism,
Right.
especially again for the African American community, and even for communities that have latched, that have been connected to the African American story through allyship. So you have the trans community, you have the immigrants, the migrants, the you know all of these communities that see themselves as being um, marginalized by the likes of Donald Trump, the white racist, um, the embodiment of all things capitalist, you know. And so the way that this story is normally told, at the end, she wins. At the end of the typical American movie, hero's journey movie, she wins. And so the American psyche is not really built for what we're seeing right now. What we're seeing right now is is like a movie that you've never really seen, with a tragic end. This is a tragedy. for some people, you know.
I put it to you like this. You know how like, and I'm gonna be careful because I know what type of platform we on. You gotta be mindful of your words and stuff. So like,
No, you
you
don't.
know how you know how like this, yeah, right?
Not
You know
really.
how there's certain philosophies or ways of life. Let me put it like that. There's ways of life that some of us may object to because of our belief system, right?
Mm.
And I might look at that as being directly attached to devilish behavior. And as a result, I might strongly dislike that behavior to the point of saying, I hate that behavior. Not necessarily that I hate you, but
Right.
I hate that behavior.
Sure.
But because of how these people are programmed, they'll be like, all hate is bad, even if it's hate against something evil.
Right.
So I guess I'll say that, like, I don't necessarily feel bad for you if, like, you was a Muslim who supported abortion and you sad that Kamala lost. Like, pardon me if I don't sympathize with you. You know what I'm saying? The fact that you wanted transgenders in the bathroom with my daughters and nieces, like, y'all wildin'. The fact that y'all somehow thought that in any way that that was in alignment with Al Islam is absurd to me. So the fact that y'all might be a little disappointed and even extend it out to the larger community, you know, um, they not asking these illegals to be aborting their kids. So the fact that y'all would be advocating so much for that, that's beyond me. So once again, um, for y'all to be feeling sad tonight, pardon me if I don't sympathize with y'all too much. I mean, I guess my brother, he's a little bit more compassionate and empathetic and all the rest of that. But like for me personally, like them is salty tears that y'all apparently had to taste. You know what I mean? Because y'all lined yourself up on the wrong side of the fence, in my personal opinion.
I
That's how
mean,
that go.
I mean, respectfully, I mean, I think that for me, um, there's a issue with the African American people that um, I would say is also shared with the African American Muslim, and that is when you don't have what you know if you don't have your own agenda, you don't have your own narrative, you don't have your own distinct um, concept of self, which we would say knowledge of self. And this goes back, to you and I. We have these conversations about,
Right.
um, different communities and their vision of what Islam looks like or what it means to be Muslim in North America. As far as the African American is concerned, the African American Muslim, I think, you know, um, I can't put a date on it, but at some point, there was a decision made that no longer meant creating uh, a unique um, identity as much as it meant to create an identity that was American and Muslim, and the emphasis was put on assimilation as opposed to um, doing a critical analysis of what that meant. First and foremost, to be a black American. So if we're trying to assimilate into uh, our culture, which is the American culture, but we have to understand that um, this culture is essentially a Eurocentric, a European culture, and it is not a, and that means that it is fraught with some fundamental Western European um, ideas, um, and I would dare say that the foundation of which would be, the separation of church and state. And so, a lot of the confusion came from or stems from the imams essentially adopting the separation of church and state, and like Malcolm said, put your religion in your back pocket. So the Islam that has been um, um, I would say taught or um, elevated in our communities, especially those that are politically active, because we have a segment of the community that is so anti Western culture, so Western, so anti even black identity that these things don't even hit their radar. Which is, we go from one extreme to another. So you have the one group that essentially don't even understand or identify with the idea that they are African American descent. They have a Western culture, Western idea, culture, Westernized cultural identity. They're lost to a degree and imitating other people's ideas and cultures and identity in the guise under the guise of Islam. But then you have this other extreme that you know has failed, in my opinion, to um, um, the assimilation process. I think may not have been done in a way that would have um, made it clear that we do not stand in support of certain things, even though those things are mainstream, even though those things are associated with progress, even though those things are associated with, like I said, have been connected, through allyship to the African American struggle for liberation. So they've created this big umbrella where all disenfranchised people would all disenfranchised for different reasons, you know. So you might end up advocating for behaviors that are essentially, you know, a bunch of white men who are not marginalized in this society, but because they have some proclivity, you take that all under the umbrella of struggle against, whatever.
Oh, but hold on, but see, but here's the question I have for you though. Okay,
Yeah,
so let's just say that a person is predis disposed
predisposed to. Yeah,
to that type of thinking. Okay, cool.
yeah.
How long or how many examples, how many instances do you need to see before it finally clicks? So, like as an example, right? Um, from my understanding, and anybody in the chats or even my bro right here could correct me if I'm wrong, right?
1 2 1
But
2.
as far as those that have to touch hellfire, right? Said that
Yes, sir.
those that would the only ones that would permanently or eternally be in hell are those that no matter how many times they were given the opportunity to pick the right answer, they would always pick the wrong answer. Everybody else would essentially, after a certain period of time, have the opportunity to, inshallah, get rescued up out of there. So then, on here on earth, I ask once again, how many times or how many instances does a person have to see the wrong or the fuckery before they wake up? How much of a grace period am I supposed to give somebody before I say, hey, you know what, I don't really have any compassion for you, because truth be told, you should have saw this 2, 3, 4 years ago. You know what I'm saying? Like, you should have saw this 4, 5, 6, 7 years ago. So am I supposed to just like hold out hope that 11, 12, 13 years from now you might come into this awakening? Like, how much more do we need to see? Folks is dying overseas. We got immigrants over here. Everything wow, inflation, this, all this other stuff, vaccine, this, all with the mandates were, the whole. How much of it do you need to see before you be like, finally, okay, I get it. Otherwise, or how naive or how ignorant is it of me to hold out hope that maybe one day you get it? So that's where, like I said, at this particular point, I don't want to say it's to the extreme of saying to you be your way and me be mine, but yeah, I would say like definitely after this election takes place and all of the anticipated roller coasters that I see happening in the 60 days in between, you know, results and certification. Um, if people don't get it by January 6th, I doubt you was gonna get it. And then at that point, let's say if I hold out, if I have a little bit of empathy left for you, it's probably gonna go away after you see what happens in these next 60 days and you still don't wake up. That's how I'll leave that one.
Um, I hear what you're saying, but I would say that you know
Yo, bring Og on.
the community is a religious community,
Mm-hmm.
and the religious structure puts a lot of emphasis on imams. It's no different than the church. So the same way that politicians run to the black church to um, um, the same way that politicians run to the black church because the pastor has a way to speak to his flock. The
Mm-hmm.
same can be said of the African American imams, and I would just say imams in general. And um, individuals are relying on them to make things clear, you know. So the imams have the responsibility that um, comes with that station to articulate and make things clear to their people. And I would blame or I would point a finger and I would say that just like that letter, just like the letter that we spoke about the other day, that
Right.
was those imams making a statement in support of Kamala Harris, and it was intended to provide guidance, voting guidance to the followers of that in that particular community. So you had 26 imams all coming together to sign a letter, and that letter uh, articulated their position. They made an argument. So the people who you have decided are the leaders of your community. They have this respect. They have this responsibility,
I believe
and
it.
then they are the ones that came and told you how to interpret this situation around you. So even if you, in your heart of hearts, had a different sentiment about it, the likelihood that you would, you know, go against them is unlikely. You know what I'm saying? So
Unless you strong willed like myself, you know what I mean? Because I definitely did not mind going against that letter and every spirit and person behind it, because like I said, I think that the empathy can be given, the grace can be given, um, first go around. Like I said, like maybe you didn't know that Biden was gonna bring all this foolishness. Maybe you ain't know gas prices and inflation, pretty much everything was going dang near double in price. Okay, fine. Now for you gonna spin the block and come back around again with the same antics though? Now I know it's not, like I say, it's not accidental, it's intentional. So
But
then
you,
at that point, like I got a different type of reaction for you when I know it's intentional versus when I think it's, you know, hey, you ain't know no better. Okay, mashallah, let me, if I feel like it was some maliciousness behind it, I got a different response for you. You know what I'm saying?
I mean, yeah, I mean, like I said again, it was clear to individuals like myself, like yourself, but we have to be honest with the fact that the matter is. So you have your imams um, making certain kind of statements, and then you have the media, and then you have your community. So for a black person and an African American person and a Muslim, once your imam says something, your culture says something, the lady next door to you on the bus says something, you know, um, and the media is telling you X, Y, Z. I
Right.
mean, there's a lot of pressure. There's a lot of downward pressure for you to comply. And again, like I said, the fear campaign that uh, the fear
That's not a
campaign.
sign of weakness, though. Like, is that not a discrediting factor for you? If I notice you buckle, like you fold like a chair in them type of situations, like I'm not supposed to use that as a knock against you, though.
I mean, let's. I know I'm gonna take a lot of flack for this, but um, that's what happens. You know, our society, our particular culture is a matriarchal culture, right? And so you have a lot of women putting a lot of pressure on men. You know what I'm saying? To take positions. So even that imam have one, maybe two, three, four wives looking at him like he crazy. Then with a daughter, and then you know you look out into an audience like a church. 60%
Right.
of your congregation is females. You know, so these are the type of, and then again society. The black woman, and then you have you getting called misogynist. What's the matter? You don't support your mama. Your mama raised you. That's how we got here. You know.
Yeah, she raised me to be a man, though. That's the thing, though. You know what I mean? She ain't raised me to follow no woman, though. I can seek advice from a woman. I can seek counsel from my mom. I always double back around, compare notes, get that wisdom. But I ain't about to call her my imam, no.
Right.
That just
Yeah.
ain't about that.
Well, um, all I'm saying is that you know that's another thing that we have to look at. For me, as we spoke, as I spoke to you earlier, I said, as far as this election is concerned, for me, it was not about the personality of Kamala. I was not really wanted to get that deep into, her blackness or whatever, which initially insulted me because that was being used as again part of the narrative and the whole African
Bala
American
Kama Sutra.
struggle for liberation was being tethered on or locked in, or tied to her election. If she would have just ran as a person, a left winging
Person of
liberal,
color
a person of
or
color,
minority.
and that wouldn't have been a problem. So,
Right.
but so and Donald Trump, people say he's immoral or he's um, a liar. He's a, that the individuals or the personal attacks meant less to me than the actual policies. Now you and I, and I'm not talking about specific policy. I'm talking about the general policy of America first versus globalization. And that always, to me, uh, is what this was always about to me. So
Yeah,
that made it
that's
easy.
the biggest conversation. Yeah,
Now
absolutely.
between you and I, I'm of the opinion that at some point globalization is going to overtake the America First thing. So in my opinion, even Donald Trump is almost like the last hurrah. Donald Trump and JD Vance, I mean, they really I'm predicting, like, assuming that Trump is able to um, win this election. I think, and this is what I was kind of like not too happy about the idea of him winning, is the firestorm and what's going to come after. Like this Western globalist media, the deep state,
Tren de Aragua.
Tren de Agua, like all hell is going to break loose on some level. So just like his first 4 years, it was just like total everyday. They even hit us with COVID. You know what I'm saying? So things got really funky in his first 4 years. They tried to impeach him a couple. So I don't accept, or I don't expect anything less than a return to that type of bizarro world. And um, I'm hoping that that's not the case, because I don't think I can take that
I'm
personally.
predicting it.
But I'm hoping that he does better this time by picking better cabinets. He won't pick a better cabinet. He won't bring in so many of the deep state people that he brought in the last time. He won't bring in so many of the neocons that he brought in the last time, and that he'll be able to, maybe between him and Vance, 8 years they get to drain the swamp, or because he has a big, as far as the ticket he's been selling to his supporters, he has a hell of a job ahead of him. You know, so hopefully he can get to that. I personally don't think he will be able to do that. I
And
personally,
that's what me
that's
do
you
do a
you and
little
I. That's where you and
difference.
I differ. I believe that so much is leaning towards the global agenda. Neural
Right.
links and transhumanism and all of these things that Kamala is alluding to when she talks about being unhinged by what has been.
But
She's
you don't think that there's gonna be a Zion in the Matrix where the pure, where the uncut, no cut soldiers is gonna be at though?
I
You
think
don't think
that
that
I
that's
think that's where
you don't think that's gonna be
you
part of the
I think that's either you cut from that cloth or you're not. And I think that those individuals that are cut from that cloth are already in Zion.
fair enough.
You know what I'm saying? So that's why
You
we're
don't
not.
think that there's independence on the fence that could get activated either way?
What do you mean by that? I'm not sure what if I'm
Remember, I
getting
used to
confused.
tell you I used to have a homie, God bless his dad, my man Chase, right? And Lord give you peace and comfort in the grave, paradise, and after protection
I
from
mean,
hellfire. He he um he was a Christian dude, and like around 9/11 times, we used to always be building on like, yo, are we in like the end? Know what I mean? Are we in them final days? And he used to always bring up like Book of Revelation type stuff. I think it was Timothy. It might have been another one, but I believe it was Timothy. And it was basically like, you got people that are soldiers of God that didn't receive their calling yet. But at the point when they did receive their calling, they was gonna take they places in the ranks, and that whole clash with the army of light versus the army of darkness, they was gonna be ready. So like just in the same way you had like Republicans and Democrats and the independents were the tilting scale, if you will. Like yeah, there's gonna be There's a lot of folks out there that ain't activated yet. You know what I mean? That as they say, like, yo, wait a minute, like this human trafficking piece, or yo, wait a minute, like this illegal invasion, or yo, wait a minute, taking resources from my people, or wait a minute, this transgender thing with the blah 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 blah. Yo, I was already on this other side. I don't know how I ain't even peep it. I know that's how I got for me. I was like, yo, I was already like thinking like this. I guess I just needed to have a veil removed. You know what I mean? It happened for me like in 2018. But I'm saying like other people it take longer, or they just in a different dimension. It takes them a little longer to sink in, or they sink in at a different time frame. But yeah, I definitely feel that way. That there's people out there that ain't activated. It's like it's not like it's all said and done. There's definitely people that are still awakening up to what's going on right now.
Um, yeah, I mean, I guess. Listen, obviously something is not um as they hoped that it would be. You know, it seemed like
Hold on, let's do a pause for a second here.
yeah,
What's this? It just popped up on the screen here. We looking like Pennsylvania. Yo, the word is if the ball get Pennsylvania, whoever got Pennsylvania was gonna get it.
that's what they said.
You know what I
So
mean?
they're saying Trump has a 76% probability of winning Pennsylvania.
If he get Pennsylvania along with them, I mean, just the fact that he already took, he took our home state of NC. You know, he super up Pennsylvania. It's pretty much a wrap for her. But then that's where, like I said, I think that before you obviously this could run all the way through the night. We're not gonna do that, but um, it's definitely like instructions, basic instructions before leaving Earth type vibes of what people should expect. Over I think over these next couple of weeks, based upon what we're looking at right now. If the chessboard when we wake up in the morning appears that the POTUS 45 through 47, you see that right there, 45 through 47. If POTUS
I see
45
that.
through 47, if he completes that mission of things, there's a lot of people on a lot of lists that was invited to a lot of parties. That's going to be in a lot of panic modes. There's a lot of immigrants that's going to be looking at their immigration status. You know what I'm saying? Is very much so going to be on a no holds barred, back against the wall type of situation, and it kind of embedded in a lot of different cities right now. So I would definitely say that people need to, this your last little window, as they say, train in peacetime, because when war comes, it's too late. I don't think that either side, even though it looks like Trump's side would win, and in my personal opinion, I don't think that his side would be the side to riot per se, even though they tried to throw that whole J6 thing from last year. I mean, from 2020, I would counter or rebuttal with all of the riots that they did during the George Floyd situation. I would definitely say that the lib side would be way more inclined to react in a violent type of protest, manner than the other side would. So in these next couple of weeks, in the same way how when the ports had their little strike and all of a sudden everything kind of dried up right quick and everybody was in a little panic mode, or even in a more benign type of situation, a snowstorm is about to come and people react and start rushing to get all your supplies. I would say worst case scenario, you got extra cases of water that you just gradually use out. Better to have them cases of water than to not have them. You know what I mean? That's all I'll say with that. But this ain't over. They gonna plan some things. Uh, as you and I had talked about, they got the conviction, the sentencing, excuse me, for the New York jump. That's gonna happen in a couple weeks. So word is, that's their countermeasure right now is prepping for when he comes out victorious. What's another way they can keep him out of office? And that's definitely, in my opinion, going to be the way that they try to keep him out of office. Like, oh, you got a convicted felon, Colorado this, Washington that. We can not certify his electorals on January 6th, keep him out of office. So It's a whole little roller coaster of invariables out there that I think that people should just kind of prepare for across the board, whether it's with your ammo here, with your stock portfolio here, with your food supply here, like, anything. It's topsy turvy. Anything can happen in this little period. So you just want to kind of be light on your feet.
Hmm.
That's my uh,
That's your
recommendation.
professional opinion.
Yeah, 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 yeah. Not intended to be financial advice.
Right. Right. So it looks like Trump is leading in Arizona as well. So
He putting the boots on her.
yeah, yeah.
But
Um,
you already know what it is. He won pretty much all them counties in Arizona. We looking for Maricopa County though.
I
That's
think
the
they
one.
showed
That's
that.
that. They showed that one.
I think so.
Was he ahead in that one?
I don't think so.
It looked like GOP is getting control of the Senate too. They already got the House. Yeah, this is supposed to be. One of the things I say about this is, there's different times in America. You and I spoke about this in previous conversations where I believe that even though a lot of people like to say, yo, America was whatever, founded on the backs of slavery, founded on the backs of masonry, founded on the backs of blah, 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 blah. That I always would say, like, yo, law users, they playing against them. And that they definitely, the Quran was around, floating, when they was even constructing or drafting the Constitution. So there is there's always these certain points in time where America kind of gets forced to look itself in the mirror. You know what I mean? One point in time was slavery. One point in time was during the civil rights. And it's like, in my humble opinion, every time this country has been forced to decide, yo, pick between good and evil, and it's made clear that this is good and this is evil. You know what I mean? That this is this is abortion versus this is fighting against human trafficking and child trafficking. Like something like really clear and blatant. That when America is faced with those decisions, they usually make the right choice. And I think that we're at one of them kind of fork in the roads right now, where even if they might not have had enough, you know, whatever to go out there and be like, yeah, this is what I do, this is what I rep. They went to the polls and they did what they were supposed to do.
So
That's
you
what we
feel
said.
there's Maricopa County. Maricopa County. She's
But see, that's 2/3 of the state right there, if I'm not mistaken. Like whoever get that county get the state. That's why I was already saying, like, if he get North Carolina, which it looks like he gonna get, and he ends up getting Pennsylvania. If he gets Pennsylvania, it's a wrap. But especially if you sprinkle on top, what I mean, Michigan and Wisconsin, he ain't even gonna need Arizona. He ain't even gonna need Arizona. So then, therefore, you're like, they can sit over there and take 3, 4 weeks if they want to come back with their results. Let Dominion mess with, do whatever they gonna do. It ain't gonna matter. I ain't tripping on that.
I wanted to get go back to your point that you were making. So in my estimation, how I we was talking about deep state or the globalist agenda versus the America First agenda, the
Mm-hmm.
Make America Great Again agenda. Um, would you say that this is a referendum? This is a referendum. This is one of those forks in the road, like you gave an example. Ending slavery or civil rights or um, I don't know. Some people. So you see, this is the this is the issue with America because America at the same time, when they talk about the culture wars, America is at the same time conservative. There's a conservative leaning, but then there's also the liberal leaning. There's both sides. So at the same time that America can, um, do something like end slavery, or um, um, the Voters' Rights Act or whatever, even go into wars for let's say to end Nazi, the end to fight against the Nazis or something of that nature.
Right.
America is at the same time doing, to end slavery was one thing, but America also implemented slavery. You know what I'm saying? So it's like we want to give it the credit for ending something that it actively participated in for 400 years, and it ended it more or less for economic reason. Some would argue,
Okay, so wait, but
as
let me ask you this
opposed to
though. I know we're framing it in the context of saying America did this and America that.
yeah,
But I guess I would ask you, when you're making these when you're highlighting these examples, it's one thing to say like the same group of people, like George Washington went from doing this, or Abraham Lincoln used to think like this, and all of a sudden he switched and was thinking like that. But the reality of it is, as a people, as a society, there is a evolution of sorts to be like, hey, you know what I'm saying? Back in the 1920s, you know what I'm saying, or back in the in the 80s, folks were sniffing coke all over the place. I mean, that was just what it was. That was just part of the culture.
okay,
You know what I mean? And then later on, folks will look back at that behavior and be like, "That's oh my gosh, I can't believe you did that." You know what I mean? Or folks from the 1950s will look at us today with all the premarital sex and be like, "Oh my gosh, y'all is some heathenistic." So there is a, you know what I mean, in an era, if you will, that I look at just America as a whole, as opposed to saying America, the same group of people, as an example, were around back in 1780, and then I'm holding the people in 1860 accountable for for what the stuff that people did back in 1780. Like I wouldn't do that.
I mean, you could make that argument because um, there is a dominant culture, and uh, it's not the same individuals, but it is the same people. So there's a continuity of behaviors that can be associated with a dominant culture, and so
Cracker.
each subsequent iteration is trained and taught by his predecessor. So there's certain ideas and concepts that remain consistent. The
But
institution.
then a
That's why.
Jack Johnson will, but then a Jack Johnson will pop up, or a Jesse Owens will
Yeah,
pop up, or Muhammad Ali,
but
or
those individuals
make you
pop up.
everybody change their mind. You know what I
Not
mean?
everybody. Those individuals are, you might call them anomalies, but what they are, and this is the consistent role of black people. So, for instance, just like you, we want to, the same way that I would say America, and I would disagree with that idea that you would say like each new group of Americans is a new group of Americans. I would say the black community has continually throughout the ages played this role as the soul and the conscious God conscious behavior of America. These things that a lot of these things that these changes that were made on behalf and the improvements that were made in the dominant culture, a lot of them were made upon the assistance of the so-called. Um, a lot of these things were made on the insistence of the mainstream culture. Um, I mean, which were made at the insistence of the African American community, and we have consistently played that role in in American society. And I'm kind of losing my frame of thought, but what I'm saying is that as far as America is concerned, um,
Let me
it,
ask you this:
I was going to
do
say,
you think?
is this a mandate? Like, what is this saying about? Because
I,
those
I,
people are going to be horrified. There's going to be a bunch of people that are going to be
I,
horrified by this.
here's what I honestly believe. There are gates to heaven and there are gates to hell. There are degrees of difficulty. So let's just say in a utopian society, nobody even raises their voice at another person, much less says something that people would consider to be, what I mean, brash or insulting or whatever. But the reality of it is, when people have to put things on a priority list, I think that more than anything, what this says is that when you have people have to weigh on a scale, do I want a strong economy or do I want the peace of mind and not having to face World War III potentially versus, mean tweets? I think that people made their decision, you know what I mean? And was like, basically food, shelter, and clothing is always gonna usurp or supersede, any type of ideal utopian scenario. And certainly when we get to fight or flight mode, where it's like, hey, you know what I'm saying, there's a tiger chasing behind me. Truth be told, I don't even care about food at that point. So like, if there's a nuclear bomb or some missile or some shit launching towards the country, people ain't even gonna be worried about what they're gonna have for dinner. They're gonna worry about whether they still gonna be alive at dinner time. So I think that in the degrees of priority lists, people decided, hey, you know what I mean? Like there's just like with me, like it ain't like this dude Jesus Christ, and like this dude perfect. And at the same time, if I'm away to, I don't even want to say the lesser of two evils or whatever that is, but if I'm a put them on a scale, he definitely outweighs her by a long shot. And I think that a lot of people seen they a lot of people are blessed with the ability or the benefit of 20 hindsight 2020 vision.
Right.
They had a chance to go through 4 years of the fuckery. You
Right.
know what I mean? Like, yo, at 4 years before that was all gravy. I had my $1.89 gas, record low unemployment, wazy woozy woo, and then all of a sudden this come along and I got mandatory vaccines and yeah. So I think people had a chance to kind of weigh both and chose a clear made a clear choice.
So
That's my
so
opinion.
so let's go into that because I keep framing this thing as a choice between the deep state and the Make America Great Again. A lot of people are confused by that idea. People are saying, "What does Make America Great Again mean?" Because it's somewhat there's an ambiguity there, and it means a lot of different things to a lot of different people. So Kamala, part of her campaign at one point became, "We're not going back." Going back, feeding off the Great Again thing. So we're not going back. So the people that were like,
Right.
maybe let's say the trans people say, I'm not going back in the closet, or I'm not going back to where I couldn't get my gender affirming whatever. So everybody,
Right.
black people, is like going back to slavery. When was America ever great? So, um,
Me,
what?
I'm just saying I like to go back to $1.89 gas. I just
So you're simplifying it to $1.89 gas.
I want to go back to
because
record low
because because
unemployment.
because because $1.89 gas is rooted in um uh gas exploration, where Kamala and the globalists are promoting the Green New Deal, and therefore are um um prohibiting or blocking use of technology like fracking and other oil exploration. They're trying to shut down the fossil fuel. So you're saying $1.89 gas, but the other side would frame it as a global a climate change issue. You know what I'm saying? So
See, but anybody that would ever dive deep into that, to down to, you know, the control aspect, that quote unquote carbon footprint. You know what I'm saying? The carbon credits.
carbon taxes
They the carbon taxes and all the rest of this. They would understand that these things are just uh, attempted means of control, just like how they would try to do with pandemic management, or how they would do it any of these other mechanisms that they're trying to use. The end result is always to try to take the power of the people, if you will, and convert it or transfer it to the power of a few. And any forms that they can use to try to make that happen, they're gonna do it.
So you're saying that the idea and the fear tactic, the specter of these superstorms coming through right before the election. One
Like a
just came
wall,
through North Carolina and Asheville, North Carolina, and destroyed that whole town. So I think that would
a rare one is just forming in the Gulf of Mexico right now,
right.
in
So
November.
these things are supposed to be uh, warnings that we need to do something about climate change, and so uh, someone on the left would say, "Listen, you're talking about $1.29 gas, but you're going to get us killed." You know what I'm saying? Because you're promoting fossil fuel as opposed to Kamala and the left, which is trying to say, listen, we're going to keep this oil in the ground, we're going to keep this fossil fuel in the ground, and it's going to cost more money for the short in a short time, but we got to switch over to electric vehicles and carbon footprints and things of that nature.
Hell no. Because the reality of the situation is, I don't know if a lot of folks that caught that Joe Rogan podcast that Trump had with him, but you know, for a lot of people that don't understand numbers, they don't get this concept of assets versus debt and leveraging. So even if the United States has 30 plus odd $1 trillion worth of national debt, if you have hundreds of trillions of dollars worth of natural resources that are in the ground, they can potentially very easily liberate you from that debt. Now, if that debt is tied to a globalist banking system or agenda, where if we were to use the pharmaceutical industry as a microcosm, they charge us hand over fist so that when I go over to Saudi Arabia, I could get a Z pack for $12 where it costs over $100 here. So the world makes its money off of the United States. And for have the United States say, hey, you know what, with the America First agenda type vibe, we are no longer indebted to you because we recognize the resources that we have here in our lands. We can become the top exporter of oil in the entire world. We got all these gold and silver and natural gas deposits. You don't need to be dependent upon anybody. Then at that particular point, then yeah, we are free from the globalist agenda. And with our Constitution and all of our liberties, then now we serve as a beacon of light to where pretty much nobody else in the world is ever going to, you know, willfully become like China. And then that we become, that's how we've always remained a thorn in the globalist backs, because here in America, we say what we want to say, we carry our hammers, you know what I'm saying? We got freedom of the press to some degree, and most other countries don't have that. So even though they try to impose that in them other countries, when those people can look over here to America through the internet or popular culture anywhere else and see that we live in a different type of way, we always serve as a inspiration, if you will, that they always or a light at the end of the tunnel that the globalists at every point in time would like to dim if they could.
So are you saying that, and I'm just asking it, framing it in this way, but um, so the "Make America Great Again" refrain is meant to um, uh, uh, as opposed to talking about something negative, is basically saying that at one time America had these rights. We had our um, freedom of, let's say freedom of speech, for instance. Now on social media, they want to give you, they say disinformation, misinformation, and they want to
Censorship.
censorship. They want to censor you. So when he says "Make America Great Again," he's talking about going back to those fundamental principles that um, that on which America's culture is based upon, as opposed to adopting these globalist agenda that is trying to turn America into, I'm not going to say a third world country, but let's say, for instance, this issue with the migrants. You know, the I was looking at another candidate called Butch Ware, who was a Muslim, African American Muslim. So it was suggested that obviously he's against the war in Gaza, and he was the vice president for Jill Stein, I believe, a third party candidate.
Hmm.
So I took a look at him, an interview that he had done, and when it came to the border, he went straight. There's no such thing as a border. Like, he went one world on us. He went the one world. These migrants, they're just looking for safe wages, a place to live, and we have to be compassionate. And there's no such thing as America is on stolen land, and there's no such thing as a border. They're actually, California and Texas is actually just North Mexico. You know what I'm saying? So he went straight, globalist on us. You know, and that goes back to the globalist agenda by saying that there's no borders, by saying that there's no sovereignty of nations, and trying to um, basically flood America with a bunch of people who have no sense of uh, wanting to maintain America First policy, because that's not even their culture. That's, they, like, if you, a regular immigrant has to take a citizen test. They say most of these citizens, most of the natural born citizens probably wouldn't be able to pass this test because the questions are so strenuous and so stringent. But that's fine. But at least those questions are intended to um, uh, make sure that someone who's becoming coming to this country as an immigrant understands certain principles. Those questions are intended to make sure that you at least are familiar with some of the core principles of what it means to be an American citizen. But if I just open
About
up the border,
did you just see that Wisconsin piece?
no, I didn't. What happened?
Yo, it looked like he took the majority of the counties in Wisconsin.
Trump.
You were just talking about this referendum, and I'm telling you, bro, like, it's first off, I don't. There's no way in the world that Kamala
Okay.
can
He's
win, and
eighty
people
percent
not
probability for Wisconsin.
like
80.
that's. I mean, yo, with these type of swing states in his favor, I'm telling you, what they are definitely going to look to do over the next week or so is not necessarily. I think that Trump has too big of a lead for them to try to siphon the vote away, but they're going to definitely look to do certain things to agitate or anger or provoke one side because and mark my words with this. I said this ahead of time. Yeah, they're gonna do that little switcheroo with Biden and Kamala in this little
Here we go.
60 days that we got.
Let's not go there, please.
They're gonna do that.
We ain't got time for the X Files, bro.
Yeah, we do that
Um,
next time. We do that
yeah.
next go.
So yeah. So this is a referendum for America First. The American people
Absolutely.
have spoken, and they're
Yeah.
rejecting the globalist agenda.
The Arab Muslims then spoke
I mean, the
in
Arab
places like
Muslims now, they spoke, and let's be clear about that. I don't know if they are jacking the America First. They're a one issue voting group. They want the war in Palestine to end, and they feel that Trump is the best option for them. So let's talk about that. Um, you know, you and I might have different opinions about what's going on there, and I, if I recall correctly, you were opposed to even like you don't even think that's none of any of our business, especially as Black Muslims, and therefore we should not.
But it's not that it's none of our business, but on my priority list, it's definitely not first.
All right, fine. Um, but as far as I had a conversation with a sister on social media earlier today, and she said that Trump was worse for the Palestinians than Biden Harris. And I said that statement didn't make any sense whatsoever because Trump was the president for 4 years. She mentioned that he moved the embassy uh, to Jerusalem, I believe. Um, but I said, listen, that didn't. I don't think anybody died. He moved. He made a promise, like a lot of the presidents prior to him made a promise to move the Israeli embassy to Jerusalem. He did it because Trump likes to keep his word. If he said he's going to do something on a political level, he does it. Just for the simple fact that he gets to brag and say, y'all promised it, y'all didn't deliver it. I'm gonna be the one who gets the green light or gets the gold star for delivering. So he might not have
Well, I'm gonna
gave a
close the
damn.
deal.
Yeah, he's a deal closer. So I said, in that same regard, what's happening in Palestine right now, where you have Biden and Harris standing firm with Israel, saying that they're going to give them, forget what they said because they saying that, oh, Biden's upset. Biden told him not to do this. But what is clearly happening is Netanyahu is disregarding what he says, disregarding what um, Austin or the Pentagon or whoever's saying. It's to the point where some people are saying like this is only for the camera, like for the camera. We get reports that Biden and Netanyahu are arguing on the phone. He's cursing each other out, and Biden's so upset. But then they turn around, go into Congress, and send him another, another $1 billion aid package. So
Right.
they're talking out of both sides of their face. And even though it seems to be an embarrassment to Biden, like Netanyahu, who is an underling, who Israel is an underling of America, a client state. When the U.S. president tells him to shut it down, he's supposed to shut it down. I don't think that Benjamin Netanyahu is going to be able to disregard Trump. If Trump say shut this thing down, I don't believe that he's going to be able to disregard Trump.
Or I'll cut your funding and let Iran or feed you to the Iranian wolves.
Right. So I said
he got all the leverage in that situation.
Right. And again, it goes back to the deal. He was trying to do the Israel Abraham Accords. Whether we like it or not, that was what Trump likes to do. He likes to make the deal. He likes to end the war. He likes to tie things up in a neat bow so where he's clearly the hero of the situation. So I firmly believe that, and like I explained to her, I said, I don't believe, I don't agree with with her position, but I don't feel like the Arabs. It's clear that the Arabs in Michigan don't agree with you either. They obviously, apparently, they believe that this man was the man to save their family members from being murdered.
And we're gonna pick this up tomorrow, but I wanna end on this particular note because I find the irony of it, like it's something that slaps me in my face, and it's kind of piggybacking off of what you just said, bro. This whole time, late 90s, 2000s, even going into the 2010s, I had a lot of issues, especially after Imam WD passed, with me feeling like, whether it was the NOI side over here or the Arab community over here, that they were looking to either fragment us or assimilate us or do any kind of things. But what wind up happening is through all of these forks in the road that we done went through, which one of them, we appear to be, seeing, we're reacting to tonight. I look to my left and to my right, and it's the Arab and the NOI. And meanwhile, the people that I consider to be a part of my community is on the losing side, having had voted for abortion and trans rights. Holy smokes. It's crazy to me. But I guess that's how we end it tonight because we got to circle back around. Because tomorrow, I guess we'll, it looks as if with the 248, with the electoral votes, that we should get close to that 270 tomorrow. And, like I said, then I guess we can start to shift our attention and conversation to what does that chessboard look like and what the reactions are going to be from there. Like, okay, so during the elections, you try to assassinate them, you try to put them in jail, you try to do all these different things. Y'all gonna turn it up another notch. What y'all gonna do here? You know what I mean? Because y'all got 60 days before January 6th at that point. And like I say, we can let those conspiracy theories run wild. Bring my boy Ahmed, bring the boy Ak on. You know what I mean? So you can talk about them children, and at that particular point, yeah, I think we got another conversation to be had here. But for tonight, I guess we say to cap it off, it was a good night. He took the states he was supposed to take, and then even here with these yellows here, as it shows, Michigan and Wisconsin, even though they're trying to turn them back yellow, I don't know what that's about. But yeah, if he got them, it's a wrap. And I don't know why they trying to turn Pennsylvania blue again either. Like I said, it's gonna be some election day foolishness
Yeah,
going on.
like I said, I'm not. I've I've learned from the last time, but you know, we might be talking all of this and wake up tomorrow and it's Kamala Day. So
If you notice, the funny thing, last year or last time, they have graphs I can present later on. 3 a.m. there was the anomaly, the 3 a.m. anomaly, where all of a sudden it was like for every 100 batch of votes, you would expect to see, okay, even if you say it's trending 51 to 49 in either candidate, it would be consistent, relatively speaking, per 100 batches, per batch of 100 votes, as it say. But 3 a.m. came, and you would see ballot dumps, they would call it, where it'd be like all of a sudden 10, 15, 20,000 votes for one candidate, obviously all going in one person's favor. That all of that started to happen around 3 a.m. So it's interesting that Kamala was like, everybody chill out and go sleep or get some rest. We circle back around at 3 a.m. So, you know what I mean? I guess we got a little suspense. Suspense in the storyline, you know what I mean? As it stands right now, it's 251 to 213 with him trending like he's leading in these swing states. We'll see what it says tomorrow morning.
all right, man. It's a pleasure, always a pleasure. I'll see you tomorrow,
My
man.
guy.
Inshallah.
Inshallah, my guy.
All right, brother. Good night,
All
man.
right, sound like it, my bro.
Wax on. Peace.